How can you virtually fix your lower back pain or sciatica from home, whether you've had it for a long period of time or have a complicated history? We're going to talk about the 3 things you need to do in this video. Let's get into it. The way we've been helping people over the last couple of months to really 9 months now has really changed, it's evolved, and it's moved to a more virtual interface, and actually it's rather surprising what kind of effectiveness this can have. It's bridging a gap that existed before but was just kind of ignored and swept under the rug. And in this video, these are the 3 main observations that we've noticed people doing from time to time that are really stopping themselves getting better. And it's just a case of pointing this out, making you aware of it, drawing your attention to these things to make sure that the back pain rehab you're doing at home can really work. Let's face it, 99 out of 100 of people watching this video, maybe even you, have already seen your GP. Maybe you've had a physio or an osteopath or a chiropractic appointment, or you've had injections and gone down that route and spoken to some sort of spinal or orthopedic surgeon. You've had those supporting mechanisms in clinic outside of your home, but you're yearning, looking for something that can support you, and that's where this video is going to come in. Before we get into it, do give us a thumbs up if you find this content helpful. Subscribe to the channel to make sure you don't miss out our future videos, and let's get into number 1. This point really relates to stability, or the importance of stability, and this is a wider conversation. It's about the fact that you should be doing exercises, the fact that you need to provide stability, stabilization for that lumbar spine, whether it's sciatica, whether it's a spondylolisthesis, whether it's some sort of disc degeneration or facet damage in some capacity. You need to provide stability in the short term for that lower back. And if it's a recurring issue, as I mentioned in the outset of this video, if it's a complicated issue with lots of moving parts that have happened over the years, then it's so important that we provide that stability through that lumbar spine so we can protect it from further injury in the first instance. And the thing I find so much on the phone and in person over the years is that it's that lack of knowing. No one's ever sat down and said, you know what, John, you should be doing those exercises. You should be moving forwards with strengthening based exercises to learn to protect this spine, even though we're going to do an injection, even though we're going to give you these painkillers, even though I'm going to do a great treatment in my osteopathic clinic or my chiropractic clinic. They don't give you the reassurance that you need, that actually we need to move forwards and provide stability. Sometimes it's not even spoken about. So let's use the spine to demonstrate. As soon as I talk about this with people on the telephone, on the virtual consultations, or in clinic over the years, the understanding that maybe we should provide more stability for this section here, that we should provide that safety net, if you will, to make sure that it doesn't wobble all over the place when we're moving around. It immediately resonates with people, and that's probably why you're watching videos like this on YouTube or online, to try and find some support and guidance about what exercises you should be doing. But quite equally, sometimes we'll have conversations with people and they're just so scared about doing something. They're scared about doing the wrong thing. And as soon as you do talk about that stability, they're like, yeah, but I wasn't sure if I should do it or not. As long as you're doing sensible and safe exercises that provide stability to this spine, not wiggling it all over the place. Mobility-based exercises are not the same. We'll talk about that later in this video. As long as you're providing a method or a means of strengthening and protecting this midsection here so that it can more effectively weight bear and be protected from further injury, you're doing the right thing. And that's the sort of stuff that we cover in the Back in Shape program over at backinshapeprogram.com. Having been through this on the telephone and on the video consultations with people, and even in clinic over the years, it does give people that reassurance. And hopefully so far, even this, we're only tip 1, that's given you a bit of reassurance that actually doing the right strengthening and stabilization exercises is the right thing for you to do right now. And maybe I've given you a bit of that permission to go ahead and move on with some of those. This brings us to tip number 2, which is the repetition of pointlessness. Repetition of exercises that are what we would classify as relief-based exercises. And quite often, you're just going ahead. You've got this exercise off the internet, or you've got this exercise sheet from your physio, or your osteo said, go and find some exercises online and do those. And you're doing the knee rocks, the classic knee rocks left and right, or you're doing a little bit of bending and twisting and all these other sorts of things. And they're just pointless exercises. They're not providing you with any stability. You've been doing the same ones for 6 months and it hasn't changed. And that is a real trap that people fall into, even with our exercises. The phase 1. Unfortunately, sometimes people get stuck doing them over and over again because they're expecting something to happen, maybe not quite realizing the purpose of a relief-based exercise or of a technique-based exercise, which is really those phase 1 exercises. It's something that's helping you learn to do the exercises that come later correctly so that you don't do them inappropriately. We always want to build things up from the bottom rather than jumping in at the top. And if we're doing these simple exercises, these educational exercises and technique technique-based exercises for too long, we're suffering because we're not getting the progress that we need. When you're in there doing these exercises day in, day out, sometimes it takes an outside influence to come in and say, hey, why are you still doing those exercises? You're walking for 3 kilometers a day, but you're still doing those exercises. They're not actually doing anything for you at this stage. You go, oh, why is that? Because they're not building strength, they're not actually challenging you effectively. Move on to these, and that's the game changer. Unfortunately, sometimes you leave it too long and it starts to get a bit demoralizing. Well, I'm still doing these little knee rotations left and right, or I'm still doing my knee hugs, and I've been doing them for the last 6 months and it keeps coming back. What's happening? Well, that's where you don't know what you don't know. And when it comes to stagnation, it's so easy to just have the blinkers on and not realize, and also get into a bit of a rut and get a bit uncomfortable and a bit frustrated about progress not happening. And that's when some of those less pleasant thoughts, oh, am I going to have surgery? Am I going to have injections? I don't want to. That's when those can take place. And sometimes just having that outside influence can really enlighten you and help you move forward in a much more positive way. Tip number 3 is the bad exercises. This is knowing what is a good and bad exercise. And hopefully if you've been following our channel, our Back in Shape program channel, you'll see that we've got tons of videos out there. Through 2020, from March, we did over 150 live videos, live streams on various topics around back pain, helping you guys understand exactly what you should be doing and what you shouldn't be doing. But still, there are bad exercises that people do and people come across that actually aren't helping their problem. And that's where actually going through things specifically with someone and saying, look, you've got this disc bulge and you've got that arthritis there. We need to be careful about X, Y, and Z. That's where that process can be really, really enlightening. And just getting that one-to-one, it doesn't need to go into too much detail, but just those little choice modifications, those choice nuanced changes to the program can take an exercise program that is filled with pitfalls and change it into something that's really, really going to help you. Sometimes in frustration, people move on too fast, and you might have someone, maybe you, who's got some sort of disc injury, or you've got raging sciatica, and you get straight in and you start doing deadlifts, or you start doing other exercises, sit-ups, planks, leg raises, all of these different exercises that actually are loading that lumbar spine even more inadvertently, because it's maybe even the right exercise. Maybe doing the squats is actually the right exercise. Maybe doing the deadlift is the correct exercise, but not for you right now. You're doing the right one at the wrong time, and that can lead to trouble. Understanding how you should be going through and building up this process is really important, because in a lot of cases, the back pain that is felt, maybe it comes on a little bit later. Maybe that exercise that you're doing, for example, cycling, you might be in that cycling position for the 40 minutes that you're cycling, and then you find out later that evening you're in terrible pain, but you were perfectly fine while you were cycling. Why is that? Let's go through that example with the spine. So it's obvious that you need to be fit, you need to be healthy, and reducing your weight down and getting fitter is going to help with back pain because it reduces your body mass. But if we're doing cycling, why is that feeling good? Well, in a lot of cases, if we've got sciatica, if we've got any sort of symptoms going down the leg, it's a buildup of inflammation in and around these nerves, in these little holes where the nerves come out. And that buildup of inflammation is what gives the pain. Well, when you're cycling, and do bear in mind, it's more the nerves, especially with sciatica, down the bottom here, but we'll show you on this one up here just so you can see what we're talking about. When we're rounded over, do you see how this hole here gets a lot larger? Well, that decompresses that hole here. The problem is that as you're doing that and making that hole larger, you're compressing down on the front of these discs. You're also stretching these ligaments here. And over a sustained amount of time, or a consistent amount of time, you can cause those ligaments to become a little bit lax, which decreases their stability long term, especially if we've got a recurrent or long-standing issue. And if that's happening down the bottom here while we're cycling, you're going to feel good while you're cycling. But once you get back up again afterwards, and once you've settled down after the cycle and you start to cool off again, things start to become rather uncomfortable, rather grumpy. And the reason they become grumpy is because that hole goes back to its normal size as you start to straighten up, and the excess inflammation that's built up there from pulling those ligaments and those disc material and that disc material apart starts to fill an ever shrinking hole, and that builds up that pressure an awful lot faster. And you can think about it like a sponge. As you squeeze back down on that sponge, that excess inflammation really starts to seep out, or there's enough pressure in the structure of the sponge to cause the fluid to move out. Well, in an enclosed environment like the human body, it can really create a little bit of trouble in terms of that sciatic pain going down the leg. So it's something we want to be mindful of. So exercises are great. They really can help, but guiding you a little bit more closely Giving you those little pointers, that expertise, that wisdom that's been developed over thousands of patients is what can really help just steer you in the right direction for your back pain rehab. Steer you in the right direction to make sure that you get better as quickly as possible and it actually lasts this time round. So these were just 3 of the mistakes that people can make, 3 ways that you could potentially tweak your rehab at home to make it more effective, avoid the pitfalls and make sure that you get your back in shape as quickly and as effectively as possible. But we can go through things on our virtual consultations like your MRIs. We can explain those MRI findings to you, go through images on the board with you, go through maybe past x-rays to help you understand your body. It's all about understanding your body as well as possible. Maybe it's going through that virtual consultation and tweaking the exercises that you are doing. We've got all the support in backinshapeprogram.com. There'll be a link up here or a link down here, one of the 2, where you can learn more about it. And we can also support and tailor and tweak that sort of protocol to help you more effectively. In so many cases, and we've experienced this directly over the last couple of months or so, just a little tweak, a little nuance change here, a little explanation of what your body's actually going through there can really steer you and guide you and make all the difference in your back pain rehab process. Because again, like I said earlier in this video, you don't know what you don't know. And if we can help you on that one-to-one 30-minute chat, then it can be much, much, much more effective in terms of your back pain rehab, your progress through the program, and ultimately getting back to the things you love as quickly as possible. If you're watching this video and just thinking maybe I need a little bit more support, there'll be a card up here and a link down here where you can book in a virtual consultation. It'll be about 30 minutes. We'll cover every single thing that we need to with you to make sure that you have a firm, solid understanding of what your body's going through, why it's not got better to date, and more importantly, what you need to be doing and avoiding going forwards to make sure you get your back in shape for good. So if you would like to join us there, card, link, we look forward to seeing you there. Thanks so much for joining us. We look forward to seeing you on another video. And again, if you do find these videos helpful, consider sharing them, give us a thumbs up and hit the subscribe button so you don't miss future videos. If you want to learn more about the premium Back in Shape membership, there's going to be a video somewhere underneath here. And if you want to stay up to date or tune into some of our more recent live streams and the Q&As at the end of those, then that's going to be down here. And remember, you can subscribe to the channel up here and hit the notification bell to make sure you know when we next go live so you can join us for our next live stream and Q&A.